So, when you think of a ninja, what's the first thing that pops in your head? I'm guessing it's a silent assassin, all in black, right? Leaping across rooftops, a master of acrobatics and deadly weapons. That's the image we all know from movies and manga. But what if I told you the hidden truth is way more complex and honestly, even more incredible? Let's get into it. We've all got that superhuman assassin image locked in our minds. But what if their greatest weapon wasn't the sword they carried, but the information they gathered? Just that one little shift in thinking. Well, that's the key that unlocks the entire secret world of the real ninja. And this slide right here, this says it all. This was their core philosophy. The most important principle, the very heart of ninjutsu, was this simple idea: to win without fighting. Their goal was never to rack up a body count. It was to get the job done without ever having to draw a blade, if at all possible. So what exactly was that job? Well, it turns out their main role wasn't assassination at all. It was espionage. You should really think of them as the elite intelligence agents of feudal Japan. In fact, the original name for them wasn't even ninja, it was shinobi. And that word literally means one who conceals themselves. Their entire purpose was baked right into their name from the start. It's all about stealth and gathering intel, not fighting in the open. So their missions basically broke down into 3 simple steps. First, you infiltrate enemy territory. Second, you gather that critical information. And the third, and listen, this was the most important step of all, you return alive. Getting into a fight was always the absolute last resort. It was actually a sign that the mission had gone wrong. Okay, so how did they stay hidden, sometimes in plain sight? Well, their genius was in being masters of deception. They were true artists of invisibility. Now let's talk about that famous suit. We all picture it as pitch black, don't we? But in reality, it was almost always a very dark navy blue. So why is that? Well, it turns out true black actually creates a really sharp silhouette against a moonlit sky. Dark navy blue, on the other hand, just melts right into the darkness. And get this, the dye that they used to get that navy color, it had a pretty amazing side effect. It also worked as a repellent for vipers and insects. I mean, that's a perfect example of how they thought. Every single choice had a practical, rational purpose. But that iconic navy suit was really only for very specific night missions. Most of the time, they relied on something called shichihode, the 7 disguises. By dressing up as wandering monks or merchants or farmers, they could blend into just about any environment you can imagine, completely unnoticed. And that genius for disguise carried over to their gear. Just take a look at these items: a sickle, a small trowel, some basic foot hooks. To anyone else, these just look like common, everyday tools that a farmer or traveler might be carrying. But in the hands of a ninja, these ordinary things became something else entirely. That sickle was a weapon. Those hooks were for scaling castle walls. It was the perfect way to carry a whole arsenal in plain sight. You know, if they were ever stopped for an inspection, the guards would just see simple tools and wave them on. So what about the famous shuriken, the throwing star? Well, it turns out they were incredibly rare and valuable. Using one was a huge deal, a last-ditch effort, because finding one was immediate proof that a ninja had been there. They much preferred using smaller, untraceable items, like, say, sewing needles. Of course, all these tools and disguises would be useless without the incredible physical and mental conditioning that went with them. The ninja's so-called superhuman abilities weren't magic. They were the result of absolutely relentless, specialized training. Let's start with a number: 60 kilograms. That's about 132 pounds. This was considered the ideal maximum weight for a ninja. Any idea why that specific number was so important? It all came down to a really practical test. 60 kilograms was the standard weight of 1 bale of rice. A huge part of their training was being able to lift this weight with no problem. Why? Because if you could do that, it meant you had the raw strength to support your own body weight while, say, moving silently through the rafters of a building or hanging off a ledge. Their endurance was the stuff of legends. I mean, some elite ninja were recorded running up to 200 kilometers in a single day. A key secret to this was a special breathing technique called Niju-Iki. It was this unique rhythm of inhaling and exhaling that reduced strain on the heart, maximized oxygen, and let them stay focused over unbelievable distances. But it was never just about physical strength. Their mental training was just as critical.
You've probably seen those complex hand gestures, the Kujian, in movies. Well, they weren't casting magical spells, they were actually a powerful psychological tool for self-control, kind of like the pre-game rituals a modern athlete uses to get in the zone. It was a way to achieve intense focus and keep your cool under immense pressure.
So what is the ninja's true legacy? What did they really leave behind? They were so much more than just warriors. They were guardians of secret knowledge, and their role evolved constantly through the ages. And that's a crucial point. Their role was never static. They started out as anti-establishment rebels, kind of like outlaws. Then they evolved into spies for hire during Japan's Warring States period. And finally, in times of peace, they became official government bodyguards and intelligence officers. All of their vast knowledge was eventually written down in these secret manuals. But these weren't just how-to guides for spying. They were also deeply rooted in a strict ethical code. They constantly emphasized that ninjutsu was a matter of spirit, and that these powerful skills should only be used for a just and righteous purpose. So when we peel back the layers of myth, we see the ninja for who they truly were, the original intelligence professionals. They were masters of gathering information, verifying the truth, and then acting with surgical precision. And that leaves us with a pretty interesting question for today. In our modern world, which is just flooded with misinformation and fake news, what can we learn from them? Maybe their most important secret is more relevant now than it has ever been.